So the candidates for the Madden 13 cover have been selected, and I really like how they're doing it this year, having teammates go head to head in the first round. I think this year's cover vote is going to be a lot more fun than last year's was. So in this video, I'm just going to go over each matchup and give my pick on who I think will make it to the second round. What I want you to do is, if I make a pick that you think is way off, post a comment and tell me what pick you disagree with and tell us why you disagree. I haven't thought about who I'm going to pick for any of the matchups yet, so I'm going to do that live right now. So the first matchup, Wes Welker versus the Gronk. Now, to me, this one's easy. I think it's too soon after the Super Bowl where Wes Welker made that devastating drop. Now, it wasn't the best thrown ball, and it was a very tough catch to make. But I just think for Patriots fans, it's too soon after, and they still have that sour taste in their mouths, because if Wes Welker makes that catch, chances are the Patriots win the Super Bowl. Plus, people that aren't even Patriots fans love the Gronk. So the Gronk wins that matchup. Then we've got Ryan Fitzpatrick versus Stevie Johnson. Now, I don't know anybody that's not a Bills fan that likes Ryan Fitzpatrick. I know Bills fans like him, but he had a brutal season last year. And I just think Stevie Johnson's going to get too much support outside of the Buffalo Bills community for Ryan Fitzpatrick to even stand a chance. People like, the whole Terrell Owens, Ocho Cinco thing with the celebrations and stuff like that. And that's what Stevie Johnson does. So Stevie Johnson wins that matchup. Then we've got Brandon Marshall versus Reggie Bush. Now, Marshall just got traded to the Bears. I don't think that's going to have an impact at all. I think Reggie Bush actually has quite a bit of a following. And a lot of people don't like Brandon Marshall because he's an idiot. He's been in the news. When he's not playing football, he's a beast on the field. But when he's not on the field, I think a lot of people think that he's an idiot. Reggie Bush wins that one easily. Then we've got probably the biggest blowout in the first round, Darrelle Revis versus Mark Sanchez. The thing that I'm wondering is, do Jets fans even like Mark Sanchez? I mean, what does he do? He wins games. He went to the AFC Championship 2 years in a row, but I mean, what does he do? He's not the greatest quarterback. I just don't see him getting many votes from people that like the Jets or otherwise. And a lot of people think that Darrelle Revis is probably the best corner in the game. I know I do. I definitely think he's the best in the game. I think he's the best since Dion. So Darrelle Revis easily wins that first round matchup. The next matchup, Joe Thomas versus Joe Hayden. Just by rule, I'm not going to take Joe Thomas. I mean, I don't want to see an offensive lineman on the cover. To me, that's incredibly boring. I don't think linemen get the credit they deserve in the NFL by your average fan as to how important they are. But this is a popularity contest. It's a vote. So Joe Hayden easily wins that matchup. And let's not forget, not many people use the Browns in Madden 12, but Joe Hayden is a top 5 cornerback in the game. I had him on one of my teams in one of my leagues that I'm in, and this dude, seriously, he's completely a shutdown corner. Next, we've got Ray Rice versus Terrell Suggs. This one is very close. Two great players, two really well-liked players on a team, and they're both nasty. I'm going to go with Ray Rice, though, and the reason I'm going to go with Ray Rice is because over the last couple of years, the Ravens have lost some big games, some controversial games, where they felt like they got robbed. And I actually agree. They did get robbed. But in that whole process, Terrell Suggs has come off as quite the whiner. And so for that reason, I'm going to go with Ray Rice. I don't think a lot of people like Suggs because of that. So Ray Rice wins a very close matchup against Terrell Suggs. Then we've got Troy Polamalu versus Big Ben. Now, Polamalu was just on the cover a couple years ago. Why would anyone want to see him on the cover again? I love the guy. He's amazing. Second best safety in the league, or first best safety in the league, depending on who you're talking to, next to Ed Reed. But nobody cares. Nobody wants him on the cover again. And Big Ben, I mean, despite what this guy does off the field, I mean, this guy just has a huge following. Everyone loves Big Ben, especially Steeler fans. So, Big Ben, it won't be that close. Big Ben kind of runs away with that one. Then we've got probably the most intriguing matchup of the first round, and that's AJ Green versus Andy Dalton. Two rookies that actually brought the Bengals to the playoffs. That's right, the Cincinnati Bengals made the playoffs. And of the two, I actually think AJ Green, taking position into consideration, AJ Green's the better player of the two. Andy Dalton is great, but AJ Green's the better player. Now, with that said, I just don't think that a receiver can compete with a quarterback as far as popularity, especially considering that they're both rookies. I just think Andy Dalton's going to have more of a following. So Andy Dalton beats AJ Green in a really close race. Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney are both nasty defensive ends, especially in Madden. I just don't see how Mathis stands a chance. In my opinion, Freeney's always been by far the more popular of the two. So that matchup is definitely going to go to Dwight Freeney. Then we've got Jake Locker versus Chris Johnson. Now, Chris Johnson was terrible last year. Everyone expected him to get 2,000 yards. The guy even said, "Oh, I plan on rushing for 3,000." You know, after he got all that money and stuff. And he, like, rushing for 3,000. Come on, give me a break. So you could tell he was just thinking about all that money. I don't know what was going on. Like, who says they're going to rush for 3,000? He was brutal. He's going to lose a lot of votes because of it. And Jake Locker, I think, is going to be a very good NFL quarterback. They're talking about maybe bringing Peyton Manning in or whatever, so people think, oh, maybe they don't like Locker over there in Tennessee. But if he sits in behind Manning, he's going to be even better than I think he's going to be, which is a very good thing for him in the long run. But Locker didn't play last year. You know, he was a rookie. Matt Hasselbeck, was the starting quarterback. So I just don't think Locker's going to get many votes, even though the fact that Chris Johnson was terrible last year, he still has a good following. So Chris Johnson is easily going to win that matchup. Then we got Jones-Drew versus Blaine Gabbert. Blaine Gabbert is not an NFL quarterback. He will not be an NFL quarterback. He sucks. Sorry to say it if you're a Jags fan, listen to this, but Gabbert's terrible. I thought that before the draft. Then I saw him play last year, and he's just terrible. Jones-Drew has a big following as is. So that's not even close. Jones-Drew easily wins that matchup. Now we've got maybe the toughest of all of them. Arian Foster versus Andre Johnson. Now, Andre Johnson is clearly a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. Top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. Maybe even number 1. Is it Calvin? Is it Andre? We don't know. But Andre was hurt a little bit last year, so I'm not sure if that's going to hurt him or not. Arian Foster the last 2 years has been absolutely nasty. He's getting the kind of holes that Emmitt Smith used to get, where you could drive trucks through those holes. But a lot of people always said, oh, Emmitt, the only reason he ran good is because of the offensive line. But you don't run for as many yards as a guy like that just because of the holes in the offensive line. When you have that one-on-one, head-to-head contact, Foster, just like Emmitt, is a beast. He'll run you over. He'll deke you out. The last couple of years, I think Foster I really gained a lot of respect for him. I think he's all that people are talking about. I don't think he's overrated. And I love Andre too, but you know what? As tough as this one is, I gotta go with Arian Foster. I think this is my upset pick. It's very close. I think Arian Foster takes this one. Dwayne Bowe versus Derek Johnson. It's a little bit of an interesting matchup. Coming out of college, Derek Johnson was supposed to be a great linebacker. And for the first couple of years, he really, really struggled. He wasn't anything like what people thought he was going to be. He's always been great in Madden, which I like. But he just wasn't what people thought he was going to be in the NFL. And he was doing just enough that the Chiefs didn't trade him or let him go. And now, the last couple of years, he's actually really starting to come along. And he's playing like that linebacker that people thought he was going to be. But at the end of the day, it's not enough. Dwayne Bowe, everyone loves Dwayne Bowe. They love using him in Madden. He's all over ESPN and NFL Network with highlight catches. Dwayne Bowe wins that first round matchup quite easily. Then we've got Tim Tebow versus Vontae Miller. Now, Tebow time is pretty ridiculous. For a whole year, I went around telling everyone Tebow is terrible. This guy cannot throw the ball. Even before he took a snap in the NFL, I was just like, Tim Tebow sucks. I hate him. He's not going to do good. And then out of nowhere, he brings the Denver Broncos to the playoffs. I don't know how the heck it happened. You know, he wasn't turning the ball over. He was making key runs on fourth downs. It was ridiculous. And I have to tell you, as a guy that went around for a whole year saying how terrible Tebow was, I love Tebow time. Like that whole phenomenon all over the news and everything, I completely bought into it. I was going for them in every single playoff game that they won. When they beat Pittsburgh in that overtime game, that was the best thing ever. And I totally bought into Tebow time. And so if I can buy into it after saying how terrible he was for all that time, he's going to the Final Four. People love Tim Tebow. Even if the Broncos get Peyton Manning and Tebow's out of town, Tebow could play in the Arena League and win this vote. So Tim Tebow is going to the Final Four. I'm sorry, Vontae Miller. You don't stand a chance. Now we've got Phillip Rivers versus Antonio Gates. This one's kind of interesting because Phillip Rivers was terrible last year. But Antonio Gates, like, this guy can't stay healthy. He's got the turf toe. I just think, you know, he just hasn't been the player that he once was. And it's mainly just due to injury. So I think that's really going to hurt him. And even though Rivers was brutal last year, I think people know that he's a top 5 quarterback. The guy's a beast. And as I said before, quarterbacks are just far too popular for position players like wide receivers and tight ends. So Rivers easily wins that matchup. Then we've got kind of a bit of a joke. I mean, the Raiders, like Shane Leckler and Sebastian Janikowski, like they don't even have a position player on the. Like you might as well put the head coach on there. Like this is ridiculous. But with that said, the Raiders have actually had the best special teams in Madden for ever. Like I don't ever even remember a Madden where they didn't have the best special teams. They always got the big leg kicker and they've always got the big leg punter. So between these two, Shane Leckler is easily the better player of the two. Janikowski is good. He's okay. In Madden, the guy's a beast. But in the real NFL, he's okay. Shane Leckler's far better. But Janikowski is just too popular. I don't see how Shane Leckler is possibly going to win this. Janikowski moves on to round 2. Victor Cruz and Jason Pierre-Paul of the Super Bowl champion New York Giants both have really good backstories. You know, Jason Pierre-Paul didn't even consider football as an option. Got into football, was ridiculous, and now we see him in the NFL just wreaking havoc. The guy is incredible. His dad has never even seen him play. His dad's blind. Never even been to one of his games until the Super Bowl. Sat in the stands listening to the radio. And they win the Super Bowl. I mean, that's a great, great story. But Victor Cruz comes out of nowhere. I mean, there's no story in the NFL better than this one. I mean, this guy was literally passed up on by everybody and had that game against the New York Jets in the preseason 2 years ago. Everyone was like, whoa, Victor Cruz. Then he doesn't even play all year. Then he comes this year and is one of the best receivers in the NFL. I love Victor Cruz. People love Victor Cruz, love the story. He easily wins that matchup. Then we've got Jason Witten versus DeMarcus Ware. Now, Jason Witten bores the heck out of me. I don't know why, but he just bores me. Now, he's actually one of the best tight ends in the whole league. He's not flashy like Gronkowski, Jimmy Graham, Antonio Gates, but he does all the other things that they don't do far better, and I would easily put him in the top 3 for tight ends. With that said, DeMarcus Ware is also a beast, one of the best linebackers in the game, if not the best now. And people love DeMarcus Ware. I mean, there's a lot of Cowboy fans out there, so I'm sure Jason Witten is going to get a lot of votes, and this is going to be a lot closer than I think just because Witten bores me, and I don't see how anyone could like him. But I'm going to go with DeMarcus Ware in a very, very close race. Then we got Brian Arakpo and Ryan Kerrigan. The Redskins, I gotta say, I know about Arakpo. I definitely do. Ryan Kerrigan, not so much. I haven't watched the Redskins. They've been so terrible. And again, they bored the heck out of me. And they've been so bad. And their quarterback situation and their running game and just the whole thing with McNabb and Hainsworth, like, oh my God. Like, I just wanted to steer clear. So I'm not completely up on how popular either of these guys are. But my guess is that Arakpo is quite a bit more popular. With RG3 coming in, I'm sure I'll use the Redskins next year. I mean, I love RG3. They're going to be a fun team to use. Arakpo wins just by default because I know him more than I do Ryan Kerrigan. Then we got LaShawn McCoy and Michael Vick. And I feel bad for LaShawn McCoy because for whatever reason, Michael Vick is incredibly popular. The guy, he's a good quarterback, but he's nowhere near what people make him out to be. It's sickening. This guy's incredibly popular. I don't get it. I really don't understand. He went to the finals last year against Peyton Hillis. I feel bad for. I wish Vic had won the damn thing so he could get on the cover and, I don't know, had some of that Madden curse or something. Because I'm sick of this whole Vic thing. I hope McCoy wins, but you know what? I mean, Vic's going probably to the Final Four. McCoy doesn't stand a chance, even though I think he won the rushing title. I think he did anyway. Can't remember. But, yeah, so Michael Vick wins this one easy. But if you're watching this video and you have a vote, please vote for LaShawn McCoy. I'm so sick of this Vic stuff. Like, he's not even that good. Like, what's the deal? Why do people love the guy so much? He's not that good. Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson is a ridiculous matchup. These are two of the best players of their position on the same team. Matthew Stafford is easily one of my favorite players in the whole NFL, and he has been ever since he came out of college. And I was always telling people, like, you're going to see, man, Stafford's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league for the next 15 years. And the guy couldn't stay healthy. He couldn't show how good he was. And finally, thank God, he actually played a full season, completely healthy, and he just tore it up. Threw for 5,000 yards. Him and Calvin lit up everybody that they played. And just watching these guys play together is awesome. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a Vikings fan. I don't care if you're a Bears fan. Stafford and Johnson are an amazing tandem. And if it was up to me, I would pick Matthew Stafford to win. But unfortunately, Calvin Johnson's going to win easily. People love Calvin. The guy's a beast. Everyone knows he's the best wide receiver in the game. And if they don't think he is, they think he's at least number 2. In Madden, people love him. It's Calvin. It's ridiculous. Calvin wins that matchup easy. Then we've got Aaron Rodgers and Clay Matthews. Now, Clay Matthews was brutal last year. There actually came a point in the season where I said to my friend, I was like, is Clay Matthews hurt and I just totally missed this or something? Like, where is this guy? Like, what is he doing? Because he had such a monster season the year before, and everyone knows the guy's a beast. He was completely invisible last year. He was terrible. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, had one of the best. No, sorry, not one of the best. Had the best quarterback season in the history of the NFL. It was ridiculous. I mean, I could just imagine what it would have been like if Rodgers had the season he had this year, and Clay Matthews this season had the season like he had the year before. I mean, they easily would have went undefeated and won the Super Bowl. I mean, the Packers' defense wasn't very good, and Clay Matthews was a big reason why, because he was invisible. All that said, not even going to make a difference. Clay Matthews doesn't stand a chance, never did stand a chance. People love Aaron Rodgers. They love the belt thing. Aaron Rodgers wins that matchup easy. Then we've got Matt Forte versus Jay Cutler. Now, this is kind of an interesting one. I like Matt Forte. He had a great season. I was the Bears in Madden 10. That was my team that I used a lot, and Forte was great. And I'm going to pick Forte. And the reason I'm going to pick Forte is because I hate Jay Cutler. Man, when this guy was on the Broncos, I used to take him in all of my Madden leagues because he had the great throw power, 96 to 98 throw power. He had the 70 to 73 speed. He was awesome. But I don't know what it was. Like, ever since he went to the Chicago Bears, I'm not sure if it's the media where now I get to see him more. This guy's an idiot. I can't stand this guy. So just on that alone, I'm taking Forte. Next, we've got Jaron Allen and Percy Harvin, and I don't know. Minnesota coaching is terrible. They're in the NFC Championship game against the Saints, and they run the ball with Percy Harvin, and he fumbles. And I mean, I know AP fumbled and did his part, but that was just like terrible coaching. The Vikings don't even use Harvin right. I mean, if they used him properly and kept feeding the ball to him, like other teams do with Calvin and Greg Jennings and so on and so on, the guy would actually be one of the best receivers in the league. I mean, I know he's got the migraine problems, but the guy's a beast. Totally used the wrong way. Just terrible. So he's not getting any of the credit that he deserves because of that. Everyone loves Jared Allen. He's easily going to win that. He had a great comeback season after a shitty season the year before. So Jared Allen goes to the second round. Okay, listen. Steve Smith is a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. I tell people all the time that Steve Smith is one of the best receivers in the league, and they just don't agree with me, and I don't get it. The guy is nasty. For years, in my opinion, he was the best receiver in the NFL. I mean, now, with the emergence of Andre Johnson, Calvin Johnson, it's kind of hard to put him in that same category. But the guy's 33 or 34 years old or something like that, and he's still playing at an insanely high level. I mean, the separation the guy gets. Have you seen some of the catches? The guy's 10, 15, 20 yards open. The routes he runs. The guy, I love Steve Smith. I think he's greatly underrated, and I'd love to see him advance to the second round. But at the end of the day, I mean, Cam Newton had the second best rookie season in the history of the NFL, in my opinion. The first was, of course, Randy Moss. He didn't just set rookie records, he set NFL records. Everyone loves Cam Newton. And I got to be honest, before he got drafted, he was running around telling everyone, "Oh, I don't just want to be a football player. I want to be an entertainer." And when he said that, and I heard that he said that, I was like, "This guy's going to be a complete bust." You don't say stuff like that. It's like Chris Johnson going, "I'm going to run for 3,000. I'm going to rush for 3,000 yards." Like, no, you're not, you idiot. Shut up. So I was worried about Cam Newton. But man, I don't know. Somebody in that organization really got a hold of him, and this guy went from saying stuff like that to saying all the right things, and Cam Newton is going to be a great quarterback for many years. Then we've got Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. Now, this is a tough one because Matt Ryan, man, score some points in the playoffs, buddy. This guy has been such a huge disappointment. They finally get a home playoff game. You know the record in the regular season when they're at home. It's ridiculous. It's I mean, I can't say for sure, but it's I don't know, 40-3 or something crazy like that. So they finally get a home playoff game in the playoffs, and they put up 3 points. I mean, that's crazy. Somebody joked and said, well, thank God they traded all those picks for Julio Jones, because had they not done that, they might have just scored 0 points, which is kind of funny. So I don't know who to take between these two. Matt Ryan's disappointing. As I said, quarterbacks are generally more popular. Julio Jones, I actually thought before the draft was going to be better than A.J. Green. But after seeing A.J. Green play the way that he played, I'm not so sure about that anymore. This is a really, really tough one. As I said, I'm kind of making my decision on the spot here, and I want to get as many right as I possibly can. So I don't know. I'm just going to go Matt Ryan by default because of that, as I said, about the quarterback. But I don't know. I think Ryan's kind of really disappointing, and he's got to be disappointing for a lot of Falcons fans. I can see Julio Jones getting a lot of votes just because he hasn't had much time to disappoint like Ryan has. So, I don't know. I'm still going to go Matt Ryan. Anyway, not going to spend any more time on that. Then we got Jimmy Graham and Drew Brees. Now, Drew Brees has been like one of my favorite players since Purdue days. I love Drew Brees, and I love seeing him in the same colors as the Purdue colors. And Jimmy Graham is a beast. I mean, the season the guy had this year is crazy. But again, I mean, Drew Brees broke Marino's record, my favorite quarterback ever, and Drew Brees is going to win that. So Drew Brees advances to the second round. Then we've got Freeman and Blunt. This one is tough. Freeman had a terrible season. The Bucks had a terrible season. They fired Raheem Morris, which was completely unjustified. You got to give the guy a chance. I think Raheem Morris is probably a very good coach. So anyway, I'm going to make my pick. It's tough. Just based on that run. Did you see that run LeGarrette Blount had this season? He just was like shedding dudes, like just throwing dudes off him. I forget what team it was, but it's on NFL Network as the top 5. It wasn't even, NFL Network didn't even give it the best run of the year. They gave it like number 2. And number 1 was like not even close. I think they gave it to Arian Foster, but I mean, Arian Foster ran untouched and LeGarrette Blount broke like 6 tackles. So anyway, just based off that ridiculous run, because I have no idea who to pick, I'm picking LeGarrette Blount. Finally, the worst division in football. Now, if you're still watching this video and your favorite team happens to come from this division, I do apologize, but you gotta admit, man, this division sucks. Like, it's so boring, I don't even know what to say. So I'm just going to go through this as quick as possible. Patrick Willis versus Vernon Davis. Pretty good matchup. And that catch that Vernon Davis made against the Saints in the playoffs, that was ridiculous. That kind of reminded me of the T.O. catch before he came all me versus the Packers like 10 to 15 years ago. That was a great catch. The Vernon Davis catch was probably even better. But I got to go with Patrick Willis because Patrick Willis is my underdog pick for the whole bracket. I don't think he's going to win it, but if there's anybody that catches people by surprise that ends up on the cover, I think Patrick Willis is that guy. Then we've got Patrick Peterson versus Larry Fitzgerald. Now, Peterson, he was okay as a corner. The beginning of the year, he wasn't very good. Then he got a little bit better. But those punt return and kick return touchdowns that he had in overtime, I mean, that was pretty ridiculous. That was electrifying, especially coming from a rookie. He just might end up beating Devin Hester out by the time he's done for the record for all those punt return and kick return touchdowns. I mean, he had, 4 in his first season? Then Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald's going through the Steve Smith problem. I mean, everyone knows Fitzgerald's a top receiver in the NFL, just like I think Steve Smith was a top receiver in the NFL. But when you go from, being a beast and then you got Matt Moore and Jimmy Clausen throwing you the ball, I mean, there's nothing you can do. You're going to suck. And I don't know what the heck the Cardinals were thinking. I mean, Kevin Cobb's terrible. So Fitzgerald's stock has gone down quite a bit because he doesn't have anyone throwing the ball. People kind of probably forget how great he is. So with that said, I actually think that this is going to be a pretty close race, but I'm still going to go with Larry Fitzgerald. Then I'm actually going to switch gears. I'm going to do the Rams. Now, this is worse than Shane Leckler and Sebastian Janikowski. I mean, Chris Long and Brandon Lloyd? What the heck? Like, why is Steven Jackson not a cover candidate? Why is Sam Bradford not a cover candidate? I mean, that's ridiculous. That's a joke. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I bet you that the reason that those 2 players are not candidates in this, they probably believe in the Madden curse. They said, what, you want me to be on the Madden cover? Are you crazy? So they said, screw that, and that's why we got Chris Long and Brandon Lloyd. I don't even want to make a pick between these 2, but I don't even know, man. Chris Long, I guess, because I don't care. Finally, we got Marshawn Lynch versus Earl Thomas. I really like both of these players a lot. I use the Seahawks in Madden 12 actually quite a bit. They're pretty beastly, unlike, the real NFL. Earl Thomas is great. He's not very tall, but he's fast. He's got nice little hit power. Um, I definitely like Earl Thomas. This one's going to be pretty close, but there's one reason why I got to go with Marshawn Lynch, and that's Dimitri James and Home Dick.